I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Copenhagen Atomics. The company was founded back in 2015. All the components and systems that have to work together seems to be the risk of building reactors. So we started building all the subcomponents that would go into that design, building the supply chain to build our reactor. Before building commercial reactors, to build 1 megawatt demonstration reactor, maybe even several 1 megawatt demonstration reactors with different materials and geometries. And we see this as an approach where we can move faster in the beginning and test all the components with inexpensive stainless steels and inexpensive salts before we ever get to any nuclear part where we have to involve regulators and any change becomes very expensive. Earlier this year, we then got funding to build a non-fission prototype for the next coming 2 years. We started building and selling these loops all the way back in 2017. Here in 2019, we had basically all the components we need for a bare bones boilerplate non-fission prototype. And so this non-fission prototype is basically a 1-to-1 scale 1 megawatt demonstration reactor that fits inside of a 40-foot shipping container. And it has all the same features, but scaled back. So for example, vacuum spraying, we might not implement that yet. It's all the key components like pumps, core, the heavy water, and the separation materials. They might just be stainless steel in the beginning, and it might be a heat exchanger and the dump tank, the bare bones minimum of what a 1 megawatt demonstration reactor. And we also sell these loops commercially, starting at 88K. So that's a bargain. Fuel salt loop inside the furnace that is then encapsulated in another shell. And both of those containments then have argon inert atmosphere. And then we have an air conditioning to keep all the electronics, actuating and VFDs cooled. Then you see here our older version of pump inside the loop can put in different components and pump salt around, run different tests with the different kinds of salts. We always start testing with water, and then we move on to nitrate salts, which is also what they use in the solar power industry, but that has a limit of 560 degrees Celsius. And then we move on to FLiNac, which is our main testing salt for fluorides. You see here an ingot we produce in 1 kilo batches, where we have to purify them before we can put them in the loop to eliminate moisture and oxygen. If we turn the light off, this is one of our pressure-fed loops with FLiNac at 700 C. You can see it's glowing red hot. This is showing nitrate salt. The viscosity and fluid characteristics very similar to water. The nice things about the nitrate salts is they allow you to test things without needing inert atmosphere. It's a lot easier to handle. They have lower melting points. Then we usually go on to FLiNac and test with that. Here I'm showing silicon carbide tubes at 900 degrees Celsius. We're getting tubes from different vendors and then stress testing them by dunking them into room temperature water, simulating a worst case accident in one of our cores if water spilled in past its containment into the insulation layer and directly onto the silicon carbide. We use Alfa Laval a lot for assembling our loops. They have world-class machinists and welders. Source all these parts, forged, investment cast, stamped, molded, assemble them here in Copenhagen and build these loops from them. We have something like 200 plus suppliers. Molten-Salt reactors, by their nature, lend themselves to be miniaturized and put inside of the size of a 40-foot shipping container. And the reason we want to do this is because our whole goal as a company is to mass produce molten-salt reactors on an assembly line so we can have a reactor that can scale to meet global energy demand in the future. So the idea of the company is just that we build the reactor. We don't build any of the power conversion cycle, scrap the idea of a freeze plug and just have the salt go through the dump tank responsible for decay removal when it's under shutdown. Use vacuum spraying, which is spraying the entire salt volume just upon leaving the core to extract as much of the volatile fission product as possible. Recirculate the helium through scrubbers and filters to separate out the fission products. If we just extract the xenon and krypton just upon leaving the core, because the fission products decay through multiple elements towards the line of stability, we can actually extract quite a big margin, up to like 15% of the fission products, if we capture them while they're being created. If we can then also extract some of the other volatile fission products, extract a much larger fraction of the fission products in the goal of a breeder in the long term. One of our co-founders has worked with LEPS for 2 decades, so it was an obvious choice for us. And one of the things we've been working on ever since. We're already talking to some facilities and countries about their facilities, but we're looking at multiple options. And the salt we're looking for using here is a lithium fluoride, thorium fluoride, and hopefully starting on plutonium. But if we can't get our hands on that, we'll go fine with just enriched uranium. And so you might think that this is trying to build something similar to what they did in the MSRW, but it's actually more akin to what they did in the aircraft reactor experiment, which was they built a 2.5 megawatt thermal molten-salt reactor, core geometry and left a small size, and they only operated for a couple of weeks. If we can only get approvals to operate it for a couple of weeks, that's what we'll do, but a couple of months if we're allowed to. The key difference being, of course, that we want to use heavy water and then insulation material between salt tubes. We would like to use silicon carbide here or silicon carbide composites or some other variants of that, but if we can't get it approved in time, we'll just use stainless steel for the brief life of the reactor. This is also similar to the approach that they took in the MSRW days, and before that in aircraft reactor experiment days, which was to build a bunch of loops and test the components before you ever get to building a reactor. Here you see one of the fuel pump loop test setups, and on the right you see a flow straightener that dislodged and got cut into the impeller eye. Even after decades of experience, you still have components failing on you and stuff breaking. And that's part of the course, and that's why we do testing. And even after the MSRW days, buildings filled with loops. This is sort of similar to what we're trying to do. We're making the loops a lot more compact. There was a lot of piping between the different components. Our approach, design ideology, is as our containerized reactors basically have all the electronics and heating system, gas system management inside of tight containment. And you see here some of the loops we built since 2015. First one was a pressurized fed loop, and now we're currently on our fifth generation of loops, which has more or less the same capabilities as some of those loops you saw at Oak Ridge, just compressed down a lot more. We need a lot more of these loops, and we're happy with the design, so we're scaling the production of them. We're building some other systems that is a 500-liter solar salt loop. What allows us to do this is our pump, a canned rotor pump, so that's very different than the cantilever type pump they had in the MSRW days, which is basically you have a pump at the bottom, you have a long shaft and a dynamic seal, and then a motor at the top that you keep cold. Where this design is compressed into a canned rotor pump, so that rotor and impeller are together, actuated electromagnetically, and that allows us to just weld the whole thing up and not have any dynamic seals. We're currently looking at building a version of this with electromagnetic bearings. It allows us to also levitate the impeller and rotor assembly on an electromagnetic field, so we don't have any wearing surfaces. Expect to get something like 10 years lifetime inside of reactor without any service, because there's no contact area besides the salt. We're basically testing and building all the small subsystems that we need to put inside of a 1 megawatt demonstration reactor, but first for our non-fission prototype. And here you see some of the different components we're testing: heat exchangers, our newer pump and filters, valves, tanks, gaskets, that sort of stuff, roughly where the components would fit inside of a reactor. We're located in Copenhagen along with Alfa Laval, one of the world's leading manufacturers of heat exchangers. We're looking to use one of their plate heat exchangers up to 700 degrees C. So it's an all stainless steel brazed plate heat exchanger we expect to be able to use in our reactor, get a lot more efficiency out of that compared to classic shell and tube heat exchanger. This whole space here we're moving into, you can see some of our loops. We hope to have this whole room filled up with loops within the next year. We also bought a laser welder recently that we're going to install there to manufacture some of these more challenging parts. We also got approval earlier this year to run some of these loops with fertile salts outside of Denmark. I can't say which country yet. We're basically preparing for that by starting with some stagnant salt tests. So we have 3 different test setups. This is basically all the electronics, valve acquisition we need to test flanges and basic corrosion before we start pumping salt that is fertile in one of our loops. This also caught the attention of the IAEA. 2 weeks ago, we got a safeguards visit from the IAEA inspectors that took nice samples and made sure we weren't doing anything we're not supposed to, which of course we're not. But yeah, that was a very friendly visit. If you're a molten salt tinker out there who is looking for a job, write to us. And lastly, I would say that as part of this selection of where to build our first demonstration reactor, we're supporting this petition to build it in the Netherlands. So if you would support that, go sign that.
What's the maximum temperature on the canned pump?
Basically 700 C. It's whatever the material you use. We use stainless steel. So if you go 700 C with stainless steel for a long time, you might have some issues. You could build it out of other materials, but that's going to cost more and take longer time. So we don't need that right now. We just need something that works well enough. Okay. So that's why everything is stainless steel 316.
Are the new MS systems from Copenhagen Atomics equipped with flow measurement devices?
We're working on flow sensors. It's not a high priority for us, but we have some different ideas and we have some tests in the making. If you want to collaborate, that's one of the things we're working on.
Why, if you can elaborate on why the Netherlands of all places, why is that the right place?
There's always been a lot of support in the Netherlands for molten-salt reactors. They have facilities there that are approved to have certain kinds of nuclear tests. It's not the only likely place. We're also looking to the US, of course, but also other places. So
the Netherlands is somewhere like NRG at Petten or somewhere like that because of their work?
Yeah, that's one of the promising places.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. There's no more questions, so thank you very much for your time. Appreciate the black and white image. I'm going to try and do that for my own cameras in the future. Inspired me. So thanks, Aslak.